If you wake up in the middle of an unbeatable maze that's always changing and is filled with bloodthirsty monsters, what do you do? The secret behind why you're here is terrifying, and you'll have to overcome the most impossible odds to get out of this alive. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the death maze in Maze Runner. This kid has a one-way ticket to hell. He wakes up in an elevator with no idea how he got here when suddenly the doors open and he sees a group of boys staring down at him. He's pulled out of the shaft and the group surrounds him, but he's completely overwhelmed. Scared for his life, he runs across the field in a panic, but stops as he realizes there's nowhere to go. 4 massive walls surround them, and everyone here is trapped inside with only one way out. He's thrown and locked into a pit with no idea what's going on when Albie, the leader of the boys, comes to introduce himself. He asks the kid if he knows where he came from, but he can't even remember his own name. The leader assures him the same thing happened to everyone else here and takes him on a tour of their community. He learns that every month the elevator sends up fresh supplies and a new recruit, but they still haven't figured out why. They climb up to a watchtower, and that's where Albie here lays down the 3 rules he must obey. Everyone must contribute to the community, no one's allowed to hurt each other, and never go beyond the walls. But the leader has no idea that in 6 days, this place will be swarming with deadly monsters, and everyone will be breaking these rules to stay alive. Okay. As far as death traps go, this could be a lot worse. If I had a choice to be stuck in a school and forced to kill my classmates, or stuck in Central Park, forced to pick berries and build tree houses, this seems like a pretty sweet deal. But there's one horrifying detail here that can't be overlooked. Albie here told us that everyone who comes up through this elevator doesn't remember anything about their past, and this is a dead giveaway about what this place really is. These kids are experiencing what's called retrograde amnesia, which prevents you from recalling memories that were formed before whatever caused it, but it can't remove all memories from your entire life. Since all their memories are completely gone, we can deduce that this wasn't triggered by any natural causes like a head injury, trauma, or dementia. They still have their regular motor functions and language, but also their critical thinking ability in the prefrontal cortex is completely intact. That means that they can respond to a problem and solve it just as well as they could before, but without the help of their memories. If only the specific parts of the brain that control memory are affected, the only logical alternative is that our memories are being intentionally and forcefully erased. Now, Albie here told us that they're given supplies and a new recruit every month, and judging by how many kids are here, that's a lot of months to accumulate this many people. If they've been here this long, then whoever's wiping our memories wants to keep us alive long enough to observe our behavior because they're sending supplies. This gives me enough to assume that someone is studying us like mice in the world's most expensive science experiment, and just like mice in a lab, it means we're all expendable for the purposes of scientific discovery. Later, the new kid goes to check out the gate and sees 2 boys running through the walls opening. He asks his little kid Chuck why they're allowed to leave, and he's told only the runners can go into the maze. Curious, the kid walks out to take a closer look, but as soon as he reaches the opening, he gets shoved to the ground. He jumps up to defend himself, but the others run in to try and calm him down. That's when the leader insists they can't let him leave. But suddenly, he hears a roar coming from deep within the maze, and the wall begins to close shut. Something dangerous is waiting for anyone who tries to escape, and when they finally face it, only 9 of them will survive. That night, they have a bonfire to celebrate this month's shipment of supplies. The second in command, Newt, sits with the new kid and tells him about the runners. Their job is to map out the entirety of the maze beyond the wall, but they've been here for 3 years and still haven't found a way out. Every single night, the maze changes its layout, with monsters inside called grievers that will kill anyone in its path, but no one's ever seen them and lived. The second in command leads him through the celebration, explaining they all have different jobs in the community, but that's when Gally, the chief builder, wants to see what he's made of and picks a fight, and the new kid accepts the challenge. They start to wrestle, and he quickly gets knocked to the ground, but when he hits his head, he suddenly remembers that his name is Thomas. Okay, our memory is slowly coming back, but if it's me, I don't care what my name is because I'm way more concerned about these monsters we were just told about. This is not just a social experiment, this is a proper death scenario, and if we aren't doing everything we can to eliminate these monsters and escape this place, then even your name is a waste of time. Now normally, as soon as I realize my life is in danger, I'd be sacrificing everyone here to stay alive, but unfortunately, it appears we're going to be needing them. We have no choice but to work together as a team for survival, so everything here needs to be looked at like it's a valuable resource, and that includes the people in this maze. With a death trap this big, there's no way one person can beat this alone, so the faster we make friends, the sooner they can help us escape before we need to use them as meat shields. Now, as organized as they all appear to be, there's a lot of evidence that suggests these guys are getting complacent. They've been here for 3 years already, and the labor groups that they've organized themselves into are all for sustainable living and not for escaping. There's a whole team of builders, and all they've done is build houses, a prison, and a town hall for their weekly talent shows. If they're here another year, they might build a bank and a grocery store, and that's really the wrong attitude to have when monsters are at your doorstep. The next day, the leader formally welcomes the new kid into the tribe and gives him a knife to carve his name into the wall. Thomas notices that several names have been scratched out and is told that those are all the people who died since the leader arrived here. Later, the new kid is put to work in the garden and asks the second in command if anyone has tried climbing the wall. The boy tells him it's impossible to climb because the ivy doesn't go all the way to the top. He tries to suggest another idea but is quickly shut down as the kid insists they tried tons of things to escape and none of them have worked. The second in command suggests he helps him out by digging up fertilizer from the woods. Okay, I know this kid is new, but if I were him, I would be calling bullshit. This guy just told us that the vines don't reach the top, except they must not have looked very hard because I can see right here that they definitely do. Now, even though Newt here is wrong about the vines not reaching the top, he would definitely be right to say that it's a terrible idea. Even if you could climb the vines, it would take an extremely skilled athlete with gorilla-sized forearms to actually make it to the top without falling to your death, because this wall is insanely high. In comparison to the average 16-year-old male, which is 68 inches, this wall must be roughly 200 to 300 feet tall, and that's the same height as the Statue of Liberty. Having said that, there are still plenty of other things we should try here, because reaching the top might tell us more about this death trap than they've learned in over 3 years. Now, a ladder might seem like an obvious choice, but this would actually be a terrible idea. It's too narrow, which makes it unstable, and the structure isn't designed to support the length. But there's another option they've seriously overlooked here. Bamboo can be used to build scaffolding structures as high as 60 stories, which is twice the height of this wall. Hong Kong still uses this technique today for both construction and renovation, and it's extremely strong and reliable. The great thing is that they already have bamboo, as we can see right here, and if they don't have enough, they wouldn't have to wait for very long to get more because bamboo is one of the fastest growing plants on Earth. These things can grow up to 3 feet per day, and they even self-multiply because it reproduces through rhizomes. I would suggest that we destroy this ridiculous town hall they've built themselves and use the corner of these two walls for extra structural support. By using the vines to tie the shoots together, they could build themselves something that the Chinese have been doing for hundreds of years and finally reach the top. Now don't get me wrong, because it would still be incredibly difficult and dangerous to build for a bunch of kids who haven't done it before. But if they haven't tried it, then I'll win the argument against this kid and his no-can-do attitude, and he can go and fetch his own fertilizer from now on. Thomas here is sent into the forest to gather more fertilizer for their crops, and on the way, he finds one of the runners standing still in the woods. He asks if the guy is okay, but suddenly gets tackled to the ground. The runner yells that this is all his fault, and the new kid has to bash his head with a goat skull to get free. He's chased into the clearing where he calls for help, and is rescued by the second in command, who knocks the crazed runner off of him. Holding the boy down, the group discovers that he's been stung by a griever, and the others carry him to the pit to keep the runner under observation. Thomas here has no idea why the guy accused him, but he'll soon discover that he knows a lot more about this place than he realizes. Later, the poisoned runner is taken to the maze's entrance, and this kid Min Ho throws a bag through the opening. The boys start pushing the runner towards the labyrinth, and as the doors begin to close, they banish him to face the grievers alone. Okay, that was a very logical thing to do in this situation. Now, Albie here has already witnessed the terrible things that happen when someone gets stung, and it's the reason they're always banished to the maze. He insists that nothing good comes from keeping them inside, but I think there are a few problems with his theory. Once he changes, he will get stronger and more dangerous, and that's absolutely great news, because this means we can use him as a weapon of self-defense. If all of these crossed out names of people were used as an army of the dead, this would be a much more useful way to deal with them. I would chain them all to the walls of the maze so that if a griever ever tries to attack us, we'll have advance warning, and they'll have to get through all of our stung friends before they can get in. Under the circumstances, if I was about to die and I knew that even in my death, I was still protecting my brothers from the grievers, I would definitely choose that over any other option. The next morning, he wakes up and sees the runners leave the glade along with the leader, Albie. He asks the second in command why someone that important would risk his life, and finds out he's gonna figure out how that runner got stung. Later that day, the boys wait by the maze entrance for the runners to return, but they're late, and the group starts to get worried that something terrible has happened. Thomas here suggests they send someone to find them, but the second in command refuses. They won't let anyone risk their lives, and the gates begin to close. That's when Thomas spots the runners on the other side and sees Min Ho dragging the leader towards the glade. Everyone knows they won't make it, but the new kid refuses to leave them behind. He runs into the maze and reaches the other side just before the wall slams shut. Now all three of them are trapped inside where no one has ever survived the night. Okay, This was the mother of all bad ideas. This idiot rushed into the maze with no time to help them to safety and didn't even bother bringing them weapons or resources to survive the night. Now, if I was Min-Ho here, I would be trying to hide a big fat smile, because now I have not just one, but two bodies that I could use as meat shields to feed to the grievers and run away. His chances of survival have just doubled, and might become the only person to ever survive the maze at night. Now, these runners are like soldiers, and even when it's not the most logical thing to do for survival, they will risk their lives to save their brothers. If it were me, however, I would have let the leader for dead and use his own rules to justify it. Just yesterday, they banished this runner to the maze because he was stung, so by the leader's own logic, he shouldn't be let into the glade anyways. Now, there's a glaring problem here that needs to be addressed, because after 3 years of running through the maze, it's very likely that this situation has happened before. If I was a runner, I would have dug a tunnel under the maze entrance here so that if we ever got caught on the wrong side, there was still a way to reach the glade safely. Considering how many people have apparently been stung before, we would learn that these things are actually massive spider-like creatures that wouldn't be able to fit inside a human-sized tunnel. With this in mind, it would also be smart to use these tunnels to make shortcuts in the maze so that they can both evade grievers and also to explore further into the maze quicker than ever before. It's honestly shocking how little they've done in 3 years to prepare for situations just like this. Thomas here asks the runner what happened and finds out the leader got stung by a monster, but they suddenly hear a roar in the distance. Something is coming, and Min-Ho says they have to leave, but the new kid insists they take the leader with them. Going through the corridors, they're exhausted from carrying the boy, and with the grievers getting closer, the new kid suggests they need to hide him. The runner tells them there's nothing they can do, but when Thomas notices a wall covered in ivy, he suddenly has an idea. They tie the leader to the vines and lift him up the wall to safety, but the runner notices a shape in the distance. Terrified, the boy leaves the new kid behind and he has no choice but to slip underneath the ivy to hide. The monster approaches and the kid sees its metallic legs pass by, but the griever doesn't notice him or the leader hanging from the wall. Coming out of hiding, he thinks the coast is clear, but when he turns around, the griever lunges at him and the kid runs further into the maze. Suddenly, he bumps into the runner and together the boys cut through a closing corridor, but that's when Thomas here has another idea. Seeing the griever come around a corner, he taunts it to lure it through the closing wall. Following him in, he runs as fast as he can and manages to narrowly escape his death. The next morning, the maze door opens and the boys think their friends didn't survive the night. But just as they're walking away, the 3 kids appear in the distance. They set the injured leader on the ground as the runner tells them that Thomas here killed a griever in the maze, and all of them are speechless. Okay, nobody here has been brave enough to even see a griever after 3 years, and this kid has already killed one in less than 3 days. If that doesn't earn you instant respect from these guys, then I don't know what does. But all this backpatting is making us forget a key detail here. If I was the new kid who just accomplished the impossible, I would be a little pissed off right now. Because when it mattered most, Min-Ho here left us in the dust to save himself. This highlights a serious problem, because he seems to be the only person who knows the maze's layout, and if he's not trustworthy, then that's an unacceptable risk. Just like how monks would copy documents and manuscripts, it should be mandatory that everyone in this community memorize the layout of this maze so that no matter what happens, it's never lost. This information might be the most valuable thing to our long-term survival, and it needs to be secured. If this runner has a habit of throwing people under the bus when his life is in danger, then we need to make sure we'll never have to rely on him for our survival ever again. Now, Thomas had some great ideas that made him one of the first people to ever survive a night in the maze. Using the vines to pull the leader to safety was an excellent use of the environment to solve a life-threatening situation, but it also would have taken way too long. First, they had to find the right vine, tie him up, and then pull him high enough to the top so he's out of sight. When you're running for your life, this is poor time management, and the alternative is so much easier. It looks like there was plenty of room to hide all 3 of them under the vines here without having to get creative. With a solution as obvious as this, it really makes you wonder how nobody survived the night in the maze, because it's the maze runner equivalent to hiding under the bed, and it was still enough to trick this monster. I would have stayed here for the rest of the night until the sun rose and walked out of the maze a hero. All the boys gather in the town hall where the chief builder holds a meeting. He thinks they should punish the new kid for going into the maze without permission. Breaking the rules and killing grievers could be dangerous, but the others disagree, and Min-Ho here suggests they make him a runner. Gally argues his point, but he's interrupted when an alarm starts blaring and they all rush outside to discover that the elevator is 27 days ahead of schedule. Inside, the boys find an unconscious girl lying on the floor, and in her hand is a note saying she's the last one ever. Suddenly, the girl wakes up and calls the new kid by his name before passing out. The chief builder thinks something bad is going to happen and that it's all Thomas's fault. The girl is taken to the medical hut and she still hasn't woken up. Thomas here asks the second in command about the note he found, but Newt here tries to downplay his worries and believes once this girl wakes up, they'll get their answers. The boy leaves and heads to the maze to find out more about the griever he killed, and Min-ho here wants to help. Finding others to join them, the group enters the maze to look for answers and reach the dead griever from last night. Thomas here notices that there's something flashing and the boys work together to pull it out of the wall. The runner reaches into one of the organs and finds an electric tracker with the number 7 glowing on a display. It's property of a company called WCKD or Wicked, and the group decides to head back to the glade before more grievers show up. Okay, things are getting interesting because this is their first clue that might help them escape, but it's also going to scare a lot of people in the community. From their perspective, things are moving way too fast, and that makes the Chief Builder's hesitation completely understandable. The problem is, they're in the middle of a death game, and just because they don't make any moves doesn't mean there isn't any danger. Now this note here suggests the maze creators won't send up any more supplies or recruits. Eventually, there's going to be a shortage of resources, and that means we now have a deadline to escape. I would immediately take inventory of our supplies to calculate how much time we have to live and to make sure we have a plan before we run out of resources and die. First, we should have as many people as possible traveling into the maze to find an exit. But if we're going to be encountering more grievers, then we'll be needing better weapons. They have bamboo spears which are very strong, but there's a way to make them even more deadly. I would go back to the griever's corpse and take its claws, tie one tightly to the end of my spear, and encourage the others to do the same. With 8 claws to each griever, we could raise an army with a much better chance at killing the other monsters we encounter. The next thing I would investigate is the elevator, because if the last shipment was sent, then it won't cost us anything to tamper with. The giant pulley here looks like it's made of thick rope, so I try to cut it to free the cage from the elevator's mechanics, and it might let us use that rope to manually lower someone down in the cage. Now, this is obviously a dangerous mission, because hacking the elevator to take the backdoor exit might be considered cheating, and whoever's setting things up could be waiting below to kill us when we reach the bottom. This is exactly why I would send someone else on this mission, but even in the worst case scenario, we're going to get more information than we had before based on how the maze creators respond. Returning to the glade, they show the tracker to the second in command, and he realizes that whoever made the grievers were the same people who sent up the supplies. The Chief Builder argues the new kid should be punished for breaking the glade's rules, and Newt here agrees, but first decides to make Thomas a runner, allowing him to explore the rest of the maze. Now officially a runner, Min-ho brings him into a hut, revealing a huge model of the maze. He's mapped every inch of the place and there's no way out, but hasn't told anyone else in the glade. Now that they've killed a griever, the runner has finally figured something out that changes everything. The maze is divided into several sections with numbers painted on each wall from 1 to 8. A new section opens up every night in a particular sequence, and the griever they killed must have come from section 7. He thinks if they investigate that section, they'll figure out what's going on. That's when these boys come into the hut and tell them that the girl is awake. They run outside and find the girl throwing rocks at the others from the watchtower, but when Thomas calls out his name, she stops. He climbs up the tower to talk, and she has no idea who anyone is, but knows her name is Teresa. He asks what else she remembers, and she recalls a woman saying Wicked is good. Thomas reveals he's been having dreams of the same thing, and she was in all of them. She then pulls out 2 syringes from her pocket with the letters WCKD, just like the tracker they found, and Thomas realizes these might be an antidote for the poisoned leader. Okay, Thomas here was smart to put this information together, but he's about to make a terrible decision. It might be reasonable to assume that the vials were sent up because Albie was stung by a griever, but there's one problem with this logic. In the history of the Glade, they've never sent antidotes for anyone who's ever been stung before, so there's no reason to think that this case is any different. It's also very unlikely that the extra vial is just a backup, because this is not a place of extras and conveniences, it's a death maze and you're lucky to even be alive. This makes me think that the vials are not for the leader at all. It sounds cold-blooded, but I would not give Albie here an antidote, because there's no information that we need from him that makes him worth keeping alive. Right now, Min-ho is the most important person in the Glade, because he knows the layout of the maze, but since he's already shown us his secret model, even he becomes disposable. We can't ignore that there were 2 people sent up that have memories of each other, and there are exactly 2 vials. If these 2 kids know more about this place than anyone else, then our top priority is to keep them alive at all costs. The maze creators only send up resources, not threats, so we know whatever the effects of this medicine are, it's going to be a net positive. So it should be safe for the 2 people who might have insider knowledge on what this experiment actually is. They show the antidote to the second in command, and after some convincing, he agrees to let them try to use it on the infected leader. But suddenly, the boy grabs Thomas by the collar and starts freaking out. The others rush in to hold him down, and the girl grabs the antidote and jams a syringe right into his gut. The leader starts to calm down, and the second in command orders a guard to watch over him, but that's when the chief builder, Gally, enters the hut to take the new kid to the pit for his night of punishment. Later that night, this little kid Chuck arrives to sneak him some food and decides to show him a carving he made. He wants to give it to him because he thinks Thomas here has the best shot of getting out of here, and if he ever manages to escape the maze, he can send it to his parents on the outside. The new kid won't accept the gift and makes him a promise that they'll all escape the maze together, but it's a promise he'll soon have to break. The next day, the new kid and the runner go to Section 7 deep inside the maze, discovering that it's open 1 week ahead of schedule. Inside, they find the bloodied remains of the runner who was banished days ago and realize he was eaten by a griever. All of a sudden, the tracker they brought starts clicking, and Thomas here realizes that this device might show them a way to escape the maze. It guides them across a massive bridge and they slowly walk to the end. But suddenly, the tracker's light turns green, and behind them, a wall begins to open. They slowly approach the tunnel, but as soon as they reach the opening, a light shoots out and scans their bodies, detecting their presence. Suddenly, alarms start blaring, and the sound is terrifying. The boys run out as the walls close behind them. Just when they think they've escaped, the ground starts rising up beneath them and they run for their lives. This maze is more dangerous than they even realized, and they're absolutely helpless. They climb up a closing wall and crawl back into the maze, narrowly avoiding getting crushed to death. Okay, if I was running through this maze, I'd be absolutely terrified. When the entire floor can fold up and crush you, then it's not a place we should be spending a lot of time, and this is exactly why they need to climb the walls. If we look more closely at the journey they took to get here, we can see that there are grooves all over the place that would help them climb a lot more easily than from inside the glade. If we make it to the top, then we won't have to run for our lives every time we walk inside, and we can get a lot more done to find out how to escape. It will be challenging to cross the gaps and reach other sections, but this could easily be fixed by making a ladder bridge with rope and bamboo and bringing it into the maze. Even without cross-section beam support and load-bearing poles of a scaffolding, bamboo has a stronger tensile strength than steel, withstanding 28,000 pounds of force. We still have to deal with grievers because they are able to climb walls, but it's going to be a lot easier to avoid them if you're 300 feet in the air where they don't notice you. Now, these two runners found a new section of the maze, and they even opened a gateway with this tracker. I'll be the first to admit that if I saw an open door here, I would take it and leave everyone else behind. But there's one detail here they missed that was telling them how to escape. As soon as they were scanned, the alarm sounded and the door closed. We know that it's not because they have the wrong tracker, so the most logical conclusion is that when the maze scanned them, they didn't have enough people to allow them to pass through. Going back to get more people is the only way to escape this place. Returning to the glade, they tell the others there might be an exit, but the chief builder thinks it could get all of them killed. Thomas here confronts him, pointing out that he's done more in 5 days than Gally has in 3 years. But their argument is interrupted when the girl tells them all that the leader is awake. In the medical hut, the new kid tells Albie here that they may have found a way out of the maze, but the leader says they can't leave. He's recovered all of his memories, and remembers that Thomas here was working with the maze creators before this. The kid can't believe what he's hearing, but they're all distracted when they hear yelling across the glade. Running outside, they realize that the doors to the maze won't close shut and night is coming soon. This is the most dangerous thing that could have possibly happened, and there's nothing to stop the grievers from getting in. That's when all the other walls start to open up behind them, and the new kid realizes running is no longer an option. Suddenly, they hear a horrifying shriek and turn to see grievers heading straight towards them. Okay, I don't know about you, but these people are shockingly unprepared for the situation and should all be embarrassed. Personally, my very first instinct is to leave every single one of them in the dust and lock myself in the elevator shaft alone to teach them all a lesson in survival. Unfortunately, the only way to escape this place is if we bring more people back to the scanner inside the maze. The best thing to do is gather the closest people and lead them to the elevator. As soon as it's full, I'm not opening the cage for anyone, not even my own grandmother. Now, it's a bit too late at this point, but there were some very basic things I could have done to prevent a worst case scenario like this. The key thing is having obstacles to stop anything from easily charging into the glade. A common technique to prevent this is the cheval de frise, which is a simple barricade of long wooden poles and could have been one of the first lines of defense. Secondly, trenches and ditches could have been used to give the gladers extra protection in case they needed to duck out of an attack. Instead of building a council hall, they could have dug bunkers. Every night they had to listen to the grievers' shrieks, and that would have been the first thing that crossed my mind. All they need is a place of safety to hide for a single night, and they couldn't even get that right. Everyone scatters across the glade in a panic, and Thomas here runs through the cornfield as the monsters start picking people off. He finally makes it across the glade and reaches the leader in the medical hut, but more grievers start surrounding them, and there are too many to fight off. Together, they all run towards the council hall, but one of the creatures comes crashing through a building and stops them in their tracks. They have nowhere to run, but without hesitation, the girl throws a lantern at its face and sets it on fire. The group makes it to the council hall, barricading the doors behind them, and they all think they're safe. But that's when a griever shows up and breaks in through the roof. Suddenly, Chuck here gets grabbed by the griever's tail and is about to be poisoned, but the leader hacks its stinger off and cuts him loose. They all think it's over, but the monster attacks again and yanks the leader out of the hut. The new kid tries to hold on to him, but with his dying words, Albie here tells him to set the boys free. The griever yanks him out, and Thomas runs outside to look for him, but Albie's gone and the glade is in ruins. Outside, the chief builder walks right up to the new kid and punches him hard in the face, blaming him for everything that happened. Standing up, Thomas here wonders if he might be right, but that's when he notices that the monster's stinger is still intact. He remembers that the leader's memory returned after he was poisoned and has a crazy idea. Desperate for answers to escape the maze, the kid jams the stinger into his stomach and collapses to the ground as the poison begins to take effect. Okay, this was horrible timing. First of all, it's not a terrible idea to inject yourself with the poison and the antidote. He saw clear evidence that it restored all of Albie's memories, and that makes it totally worth it. The problem is that right now, he needs to be fighting for the future of the glade, and poisoning himself is going to make it impossible to control what happens next. When he passes out, Gally could take over and banish him into the maze if he wants to. If the chief builder was mad enough, he might even confiscate the antidote before Thomas here could get treated with it. He has no control over the situation at this moment, and that makes it a terrible idea. I would have waited to resolve the fight with Gally and found a safe place to test this poison in a controlled environment. Now, having said that, there's a much bigger cost to this than anyone even realizes. Right now, our only priority is to get as many people as possible to follow us into the maze so we can escape through that doorway. But that's going to be a lot more difficult when we've just been viciously attacked by grievers. If we're the new kid, we should assume that everyone will be blaming us for this horrible situation, because as soon as we arrived, everything started changing, and now they don't even have a home. We need to make sure we can get everyone to trust us enough to escape together, and that's exactly why I would put all the blame on Gally, the chief builder. This whole time, he's been making the point that the maze is too dangerous to explore and doesn't want anyone to leave. He's also the chief builder, so he has the most knowledge and experience to build defensive structures for the glade. The fact that this griever attack even happened is a strong case that Gally should not be leading anyone. He had 3 years to plan for their protection and prepare the glade for a possible attack, but he did absolutely nothing to prevent it. I would use this to drive all the survivors against him, and once they realize there's no point in staying in the ruins of their home, they'll leave Gally here in his empire of dirt and join us into the maze to help us all escape. He wakes up the next morning locked inside the pit to find his friends staring down at him from outside the cage. They tell him that the chief builder Gally has become the new leader and has forced everyone to choose between joining him or being banished. He's convinced the boys that Thomas is the cause of all of their problems, and that's when the new kid drops a truth bomb on them. The poison has made him remember everything, and he reveals that he and the girl were working with the maze creators to help study all the kids in the glade for 3 years in a massive experiment. Everyone is shocked, but the second in command says whoever he used to be doesn't matter, and right now all they need to focus on is survival. Later, the prisoners are brought out to the maze's entrance to be banished, but the others start to question if the new kid might be right. The chief builder Gally tells them there is no escaping this place, and since Thomas has disturbed the peace, he's going to sacrifice them to the grievers so that everything will go back to the way it was before. Gally here orders these 2 boys to tie the kid up, but when they grab him, he attacks, and his friends suddenly join in the fight, stopping the chief builder from intervening. They all realize that there's no going back to the way things were before, and Thomas is their last and only chance to escape. The new kid announces they're going to leave, and tells the other boys that they can't stay here forever, but he's certain he knows how to escape. They run through the maze with Thomas guiding them until they reach the same bridge they visited before in Section 7. Spotting a griever at the end of the walkway, they fearlessly rush forward and attack it, working together to fight it off with their spears. The little kid and the girl run to the door with the tracking device when suddenly a wall opens up and they head deeper inside the tunnel. More grievers arrive and the boys can barely hold them off. But that's when a holographic display lights up with 8 numbers flashing, and the girl tells Thomas that they need a code to enter. Realizing it's the maze's pattern, the runner here yells out the answer as the group retreats into the tunnel, and when the girl inputs the final number, the walls squish the grievers to death. Suddenly, a door swings open and they walk in to find a research lab with dead scientists all over the floor. Watching a video log recorded by the director of Wicked, he finds out that most of human civilization was destroyed by a solar flare, then an incurable virus spread, but only a very small percentage of the remaining population was immune to it. Wicked used the maze as an experiment to observe their behavior and try to figure out why these kids were so unique. All the kids were lab rats, and the video log ends with the woman taking the coward's way out as armed soldiers stormed the lab. Okay, this is a horrifying revelation, but there's one detail here that I find even more upsetting. When the group walked into the room, the runner kicked the gun away from the dead guard as though he knew it was a dangerous weapon, but he didn't even consider picking it up. If it were me, I would have ordered them all to loot the bodies for both information and weapons. Most of them wouldn't know how to fire a gun because of memory loss, but Thomas's memory is restored so he could easily teach them how to use it. At the very least, if the outside world is a wasteland with a dangerous virus that turns people into rage zombies, we're going to be needing much more than spears and machetes. Suddenly, the door to the outside world opens and Thomas here is about to lead them out, when Gally appears behind them and tells them to stop. The chief builder has been stung by a griever and points his gun at the kid. Just as he's about to pull the trigger, the little kid jumps in front of his friend to protect him as the runner throws his spear straight into the builder's chest, but Chuck here caught the bullet. He falls to the floor, and the little kid gives him the wooden carving to deliver to his parents, using his last moments to thank Thomas for his friendship. It's heartbreaking, but before they have time to mourn, armed soldiers run in and drag the group outside. The children are escorted into a helicopter that takes off, giving them all a view of the maze from above. They finally get to see where they've all been living for 3 years in a single view, and it's way bigger than they ever imagined. Meanwhile, the director of Wicked is still alive. She was faking her death this whole time and reveals to a boardroom that the maze trials were a success, but phase 2 will now begin.
But what do you think? How would you beat the Maze Runner? Let me know with a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos like this. Until next time, have a damn good day.
If almost everyone on Earth was dead and you were mankind's last chance for survival, what would you do? Entire cities are overrun by zombies, and even the humans can't be trusted not to stab you in the back. So I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the end of the world in Maze Runner: The Scorched Trials. A solar flare has destroyed life as we know it, and a virus is turning everyone into bloodthirsty zombies. This young man is very special, and he's the only one who holds the key to beating the deadly apocalypse. Thomas and his friends here have just been rescued from a death maze. As they wait around hungry and dirty in a high-tech building, they are greeted by this smug man, Mr. Jansen. He takes credit for saving them all and tells the group that he runs the facility. He explains that while a solar flare and a virus has wiped out most of the world, the teens will be safe here until they can find new homes. The boys are given a shared bunk and are sent to many rounds of medical tests. The only girl, Teresa, is separated from the others and kept under close guard. Thomas is taken to see Jansen. The whole place looks like an interrogation room, and the boys sees cameras watching. Jansen only has one question for him. He wants to know if Thomas is loyal to Wicked, the boy's former employer, and the organization responsible for creating the death maze in search of a cure to the virus. This makes Thomas angry. He tells Jansen that he will never trust Wicked again after they killed so many of his friends. Sometime later, the group sees that they are not the only ones here. There are dozens of others like them who seem to be immune from the virus and have been rescued from different mazes. The other teens are all waiting for new homes too. Every few days, Jansen will come into the cafeteria and read out a few names. These are the teens that he has found a safe home for, and they leave with him each time. That night, this boy Eris sneaks through the vents to visit Thomas in his bunk. He has been at the facility for the longest time out of everyone, and seems to know a few secrets. Following the boy through the vents, Thomas sees the facility's doctors transporting people in body bags into a room only accessible with a card. He's rattled. Clearly something is very wrong here, and the rescuers are hiding some sort of dark secret. During the next meal, Thomas approaches the guards and demands to see Teresa. They refuse, and even threaten him, asking that he sit back down. A fight breaks out, and Thomas's friends rush to back him up. Before any real damage can be done, Jansen breaks up the fight and sends the boys back to their bunk. Thomas fills the others in on his plan. He thinks Jansen and his crew are the bad guys and has stolen an access card in the chaos. Thomas and Eris sneak back through the vents and enter the secure room using the card. Inside, they are horrified to find dozens of people hanging motionless and hooked up to medical devices. These are the teens Jansen has taken away. They're not dead, but completely unconscious and unresponsive. Okay, these teens have just fallen for the oldest trick in the book. They were focusing on Jansen's big smile and even bigger promises, but if they take a moment to examine how they're being treated, they would realize much sooner that Jansen is not who he claims to be. Thomas here already knows two things: that his friends are all immune to the virus, and that Wicked forced them into a death maze as part of an experiment to find a cure. The logical next step is for Wicked to take them out of the maze, run tests on them, and draw medical samples. This is exactly what Jansen is doing right now. If I were in Thomas's shoes, I would start looking for other similarities between Jansen's facility and Wicked. The first thing I would notice is that the facility I am in is massive, clean, and filled with coordinated employees. In fact, this facility even has massive sliding doors and medical serums very similar to the technology we have seen in the maze. They even have armed guards and have separated Teresa from the rest of us, just like how the maze creators only added her to the group weeks after the rest of the boys. These are way too many similarities to be a coincidence. The only explanation that makes sense here is that Jansen is a part of Wicked, and we are currently being held in a Wicked facility as the next phase of their sick experiment. This means that we cannot trust anything Jansen says, including that the kids he chooses each day are being saved. If we know Wicked wants to run tests on people who are immune, and these immune teens are disappearing, it's very likely that they're the unconscious people Thomas sees in front of them. They were brought into this lab in the body bags Thomas saw, and are now being exploited by Wicked to extract a cure. Since the teens are very outmatched, they cannot use brute force if they want to escape. Since Jansen has already given Thomas the chance to say that he's still loyal to Wicked, this shows that the captors are still on the fence about him and may slip up. Thomas here should ask to see Jansen again and pretend to be coming around to Wicked's values. He should tell Jansen that Wicked isn't evil, they are just trying to save humanity by finding a cure. To seal the deal, Thomas can even say he started to remember more about his time working for them, and that he misses Teresa and their time together under Wicked. The best lies incorporate slivers of the truth, and Jansen will be more likely to believe him here, since it's clear Thomas does have feelings for Teresa. Once Wicked takes Thomas back into their inner circle, he will minimally have better access to all parts of the facility to plan an escape for his friends. Just then, Thomas and Eris hear the main door opening. They hide as Jansen walks in. The man makes a call to Wicked Dr. Ava Page, who Thomas had previously been told was killed. Page demands that Jansen harvest all the remaining teens by the next day, and asks if he's managed to track down a resistance group called the Right Arm. They're anti-Wicked guerrilla fighters who've already attacked several of their bases and rescued the immune test subjects that were being stored there. Reluctantly, the man tells her they know they live in the mountains, but nothing else. It's clear they could raid this facility, and the man agrees to process the kids, starting with Thomas's group. Stunned, the teen realizes that everything they have been told is a ruse. Jansen and the entire facility are part of Wicked, and they are all in grave danger. Rushing back to the bunk, Thomas warns his friends they need to leave right now. They barricade the door with a mattress and quickly escape through the vents. That's when Jansen's men barge into the room and realize they're trying to break out. Making it to another part of the facility, Eris has a clever idea that will help them escape, and goes back into the vents with another teen, while others continue making their way through the base. Thomas and his friends carry on and run into this Wicked doctor, immediately taking her hostage. Heading down a hallway, one of Jansen's men quickly catches up to them and shoots at them with electric taser rounds. Mino here charges at the man and knocks him out. They quickly steal his weapon and enter the medical bay, where they find Teresa. With all the friends finally reunited, they run as fast as they can and leave the room to break out of the facility. But there's a problem. This massive door is in the way, and Thomas's card won't unlock it. Jansen and his men are close behind and have them cornered. It looks inevitable that Wicked is going to catch up and capture them with no hope of surviving their experiments. Suddenly, the door slides open. Eris has overridden the system and come to save them. Everyone rushes to the other side, with Thomas sliding in and narrowly avoiding being crushed by the massive door at the last second. Eris smashes the control panel and locks Jansen's crew inside the facility. Finally making it out of the base, the teens stumble into a vicious windstorm. They can barely see ahead of them as sand and fog is blowing everywhere. After running up a dune, they find an abandoned mall and sneak in through a broken window. Inside, they make a plan to try and reach the Right Arm, a resistance group working against Wicked and said to be living in the mountains nearby. It's the only thing they can do at this point to survive, but then one of the boys discovers something strange. On the ground are footprints left in the sand, and it's a clear sign that someone has been here. Following the tracks, they discover an abandoned survivors camp that's full of supplies, and Thomas tells them to gather what they need for the journey while he goes looking for more resources. Heading out with Mino, he splits up from the group as everyone searches the mall. Looking around, there are many signs of life such as beddings, toys, and food. They spot a dead body sitting in a chair with a lamp facing them, and after turning the lamp's switches, Mino realizes that the building has working electricity. The boys go to the generator room and Mino turns it on, activating all the lights in the mall, but this was his biggest mistake. They hear growling nearby, and suddenly a zombie-like creature tries to rush at them from behind the fence. To make matters worse, more of them are coming out of hiding spots within the mall and chase after the boys. The lights have alerted these monsters, and there are way too many of them. Terrified, Thomas and Mino rush back to their friends, with the zombies close behind. Seeing these horrifying creatures for the first time, the rest gather up their supplies and start to run as well. Okay, Mino here is a complete idiot. Turning on the power is the worst possible thing he could have done. Looking back at their current objective, the friends want to gather basic supplies, then quickly head out to find the right arm. Having power would not help at all. In fact, since they are split up, Mino has no idea where his friends are. If any of them are currently crawling through elevator shafts or under mechanical doors, activating these features could mean that they get crushed without warning. Thomas here should have pointed out to his simple-minded friend that they already have flashlights and are in a mall where there are literally massive signs showing what each shop is and what supplies they may have. Powering the lights offers no benefit. The only thing this accomplishes is alerting the wicked soldiers searching for them right outside, as well as any enemies hiding in the mall, that they are here. And this is exactly what happens. Turning on the power only shines a spotlight on them as an all-you-can-eat buffet for every zombie in a 1-mile radius. It might be a massive risk, but what the group should have done is try to sneak back into the facility. Jansen and his men will want to devote all resources searching for them. It is nighttime and there's a sandstorm, which lowers visibility. With every second that passes, the teens may have run even further away from the facility. The search party will need to spread themselves out over a huge area in order to leave no stone unturned. This is why Jansen has likely sent every soldier he has out of the facility to overcome these factors and find the teens. Knowing this, Jansen would never expect Thomas to be cunning enough to double back and lead his group back to the scary place they have just escaped from. Thomas's group have all developed athletic and survival skills from being trapped in a death maze where they were forced to survive all by themselves. Once inside, they can easily overpower any doctors and scientists who have stayed behind and steal their access cards and the facility's arsenal of weapons. They should also make it a priority to expose the secret lab full of unconscious bodies to the remaining teens trapped in the facility. Using the facility's intercom and teleconferencing system, or even something as simple as a camera phone, Thomas should show the other captives who Jansen really is and what Wicked has already done to the others. This gives Thomas the chance to easily triple their group size if the other teens choose to join him. At the very least, it will spook the others enough to cause total pandemonium, so Jansen focuses on them instead and stops coming after our group. The last thing Thomas should do is look for the facility's garage. Jansen has vehicles that make it much easier to travel across the rough and unforgiving terrain. If Thomas and his friends can get their hands on some of them, their journey to find the right arm will be much easier. The group makes it up several stories using these escalators, but are quickly overwhelmed. They fend off the fierce zombies with pipes and hammers, but they just keep coming no matter what they do. When this teen is tackled by a zombie, Thomas kicks it through the safety glass and it falls to its death. The survivors continue running, heading down this hallway, but just as they finally make it to the exit, they are terrified to find it locked. This boy volunteers to hold off the charging horde, while his friends kick down the door. He fires at everything that comes down the corridor, but there are too many of them, and they are gaining ground fast. The survivors manage to break the door open, but the volunteer is too slow and gets dragged to the ground by the zombies. They claw at his stomach and try to rip him open as his friends try to pull him away. He finally gets free, but is badly injured and has to be carried by the others. The friends make it out of the mall and take cover under a highway bridge. They force themselves to stay quiet as zombies try to look for them nearby, but the teens manage to stay hidden through the night. The next morning, the teens awaken to find that the zombies have left and head out, continuing their journey to find the right arm. As they walk through the city, they see that everything is in ruins. Buildings are completely abandoned, and skyscrapers have crumbled to rubble that is now littering the street. It doesn't seem like anyone's lived here for years, but that's when Thomas hears a noise in the distance and tells everyone to hide. They crawl underneath some debris before they can be caught by 3 wicked aircraft flying overhead. Jansen has not given up looking for them and is now using planes to scout the entire city to hunt them down. They travel onward and make it to these sand dunes, spotting the mountains in the distance. They're about to move on when the injured boy collapses. His condition is getting worse, but the only way they're all going to survive is if they continue. With no way this poor boy can walk any further, the others create a stretcher for him and drag him behind them. They stop for a break and Teresa goes to check on Thomas so they can talk. She shows him these strange markings in the back of her neck, revealing she's regained her memories and now knows why they were working for Wicked. They used to think working with Wicked was the only way to find a cure for the virus. She then drops a bombshell. She thinks they should surrender and go back to Wicked. Thomas is shocked and can't believe what he's hearing. Before he can reply, a gunshot rings out of their camp, and the pair rush back to find out what is going on. The injured boy has wrestled a gun away from one of his friends, but now he's weak and puking blood. Falling to the ground, he shows them that the scratches on his stomach have turned black and spread to his entire body. He begs them to let him end his own suffering. Taking a moment to think about it, his friends realize they have no other choice and say a tearful goodbye to him, leaving the gun with the boy before leaving. After the group has made it a short distance away, they hear a gunshot and know that their friend has died. Okay, this boy's death is heartbreaking, but Thomas has missed something far more important. The teens are all supposed to be immune from the virus, but their friend here just got infected like anyone else from being in contact with the zombies. This is a massive setback, because it means they will now have to take precautions as if they are fully vulnerable to the virus and its effects. If I were in Thomas's shoes, I would immediately tell everyone to stop and check each other for wounds that have drawn blood. The zombies broke the skin of our friend, and that is how they transferred the virus to him. Anyone else who has open wounds is likely to be infected too. I would instruct the rest to keep an eye on each other. We have seen firsthand that the symptoms of infection are discoloration of the skin, trembling, loss of balance, and vomiting. If anyone starts showing these symptoms, then it will be the best choice to lock them away, or at least leave them behind so they can't become a risk of infecting us too. I would also tell everyone to keep the fact that we can get infected a complete secret. Even when Wicked were desperate to stop us from escaping their facility, they could only use non-lethal guns because people who are immune are so rare, and they need us alive in order to run further tests and develop their cure. Wicked has already been patrolling the city with aircraft, and the fact that they need us alive is the only thing stopping them from carpet bombing entire sections of the city from above in an effort to wipe out anyone who opposes them. If somebody in the group is captured, or if we encounter any other survivors in the wild, it is crucial that they continue to believe we are fully immune. If our enemies think they can use our natural immunity to develop a cure for themselves, we will always have the upper hand because we will be willing to kill them, but they need to keep us alive. The infection isn't the only thing that Thomas missed. As the de facto leader of his crew, he really needed to deal with what Teresa told him. It is common sense that anyone who wants to go back to Wicked has a different goal from the rest of the group. Before he can go any further with her, Thomas needs to make sure Teresa's loyalty lies in the right place. This is the woman who once worked for Wicked out of her own free will. This means that even if she has lost her memory, Teresa at the very least has some personality traits and values that align with what Wicked is doing. In addition, she's the only one that was separated from the group back at the facility, with many days unaccounted for. Thomas doesn't know how much of her memory or former personality has been restored, or what persuasions Jansen has filled her head with. While she may not be a bad person, it's clear that Teresa is not 100% aligned with our objective to escape Wicked. This makes her a liability who needs to be left behind. The next day, after trekking through the harsh wasteland all day, the teens find their supplies running low. As night falls, they try to sleep on the bare desert ground while trembling in the cold, but then Thomas hears a rumbling in the distance and senses danger. He yells for his friends to get up. Scrambling awake, they see dark clouds forming overhead and terrifying lights in the distance. It's a lightning storm headed straight for them. The survivors run as fast as they can when they spot a warehouse nearby and run for cover. It's too late. The storm has caught up and deadly bolts of lightning strike the ground around them as they sprint through the sand. Suddenly, a bolt strikes Mino, knocking both him and Thomas to the ground. With ringing ears and blurred vision, Thomas sees his friend lying motionless with smoke rising off his body. The others work together to help both injured survivors inside the warehouse. Placing Mino on the ground, they are relieved to find that he's alive, but Teresa senses something strange. That's when a chained zombie rushes at them, and more of them charge at the teens, furiously trying to attack them. Luckily, the chains around their necks stop them before they can cause any harm, and the commotion alerts a girl who approaches the survivors. Brenda here explains that the chained zombies are their guard dogs who will alert them of any intruders, and takes them through the facility where a whole community of people are hiding out. Eventually, they meet this man Jorge. He's the leader of this facility and is close with Brenda, treating her like a daughter. Jorge is immediately suspicious of the group and demands to know where they're going, where they came from, and what he gains from helping them. The teen reveals they're looking for the right arm resistance groups, but when they refuse to answer where they came from, his men grab them. The leader scans Thomas's neck with a device and realizes he's been tagged by Wicked, meaning he knows exactly how to use them. The survivors are hung by their feet over a large pit, where Jorge starts to interrogate them, revealing that his men want to sell the teens back to Wicked, but he would rather help them in exchange for information on the right arm. He lowers the ropes, and Thomas tells them the organization is hiding in the mountains, but doesn't know anything else. With that, the man heads back to his office to pack his things away, where Brenda finds him and asks Jorge what he's doing. He explains that the teens might be their ticket to finally join the right arm, since showing up with immune people will catch the right arm's attention. They make a plan to stick with each other, but leave everyone else in their
community behind in order to take the friends to the right arm. Without warning, helicopters surround the building. Jansen has found them. Through loudspeakers, he demands the occupants hand over the teens or face the wrath of Wicked, and all the other survivors in Jorge's community flee out of the building in terror. This bald survivor is especially eager to work with Wicked and speaks to Jansen through a walkie-talkie, telling him that he will retrieve the teens. When the bald man arrives at the pit, he finds that the teens have already swung each other to safety and freed themselves from the ropes. Acting quickly, Thomas tries to disarm him and fights for the shotgun, but the man gets the upper hand. He's about to kill Thomas when Brenda arrives and shoots him from behind, saving the boy's life. Okay, these teens are too trusting for their own good. With extremely limited resources and danger around every corner, this world is ruled by self-preservation. This means that people have the incentive to lie to them for their own gain. The friends should look beyond what Jorge and Brenda say and consider what their actions reveal about them. The pit that Jorge has dangled them over is almost certainly a fatal drop, especially when falling head first because they are hanging upside down. Both the ropes used and pulley system are old and untested, running the risk of breaking and dropping them at any moment. The risk is multiplied by 6, considering that Jorge has done this to all 6 teens. This shows that Jorge and Brenda are not currently loyal to Thomas's crew, and don't care if any of them die by accident. Even worse, they have been left hanging upside down despite giving Jorge the information he wanted. Hanging upside down for extended periods have been associated with severe health risks or even death, as blood pools in the brain and heavier organs press down in the lungs. Any of the captains could develop a brain hemorrhage, slowly suffocate, or have their hearts give out. In fact, heart failure is the leading cause of death in people trapped upside down for long periods. The warehouse's guard zombies are also left to roam freely within the range of their chains, with no one bothering to set up guardrails or obstacles to ensure they don't infect innocent visitors. All this shows that Jorge and Brenda are at best careless about the lives of others and aren't genuinely interested to help anyone unless it also benefits them in a significant way. If I were Thomas here, I would take the option for them to betray us completely off the table. I would let them know that if they sell my friends and I back to Wicked, I would make certain that Jansen has reason to come after them to eliminate them for good. I would threaten to give Wicked all the inside information I have about their warehouse hideout and their physical descriptions. I would then tell Jansen that Jorge and Brenda are sympathizers to the right arm, which is close to the truth. Given how ruthless Jansen is, it is not hard to believe that he would either want to kill them as potential threats or capture and torture them for information about the right arm. This makes any attempt for Jorge and Brenda to cooperate with Wicked a death sentence for themselves. I may not actually be willing to be that ruthless, but so long as they believe I am, it would be in their best interest to do what we want and help us find the right arm. The beauty of this approach is that Thomas does not even have to rely on Jorge and Brenda being good people. Even if they are self-serving like most residents of this world are, it becomes aligned with their selfish interests to help Thomas and his friends out. Meanwhile, in his office, Jorge quickly plays a song on his record player and broadcasts it all over the facility. This acts as a detonation countdown, which will set off explosives he has placed all over the warehouse. Brenda heads to the top floor, leading the teens to Jorge, where he shows them he has prepared a zipline, which they can use to reach a nearby building. Knowing that Jorge can take them to the right arm, the friends grab onto rope loops and take this massive leap of faith. One by one, they ride down the zipline to the other building. Jansen spots them and orders his men to storm the top floor where they are. Suddenly, Brenda sprints away from them and Thomas decides to follow after her, knowing they're running out of time. He finds her in the office searching for something in a desk, and they try to go back, but Wicked soldiers are blocking the way. The teenagers are forced to make a break for it and get cornered in by the goons, but that's when the song reaches the end. It triggers the explosives throughout the facility. The blasts take out many of the support beams on the lower floor, causing entire sections of the building to crumble down. Thomas and Brenda evade the soldiers and leap down an elevator shaft to safety, just as the whole building collapses around them. With Jansen's men now dead, the pair head into the sewers to catch up with Jorge. As they walk through the dark tunnels, they see that large portions of the wall are covered with red and infectious-looking tendrils. They have no idea what it is, but then they hear a sound coming from this pipe. A rat startles them and they watch as it runs along the tunnel. Suddenly, a hand emerges from the tendrils and grabs the rat. It's a rotting zombie with squirming veins branching out from its body. It bites the rat's head off and starts to chew as dozen more of these zombies emerge from the sewers. They know Thomas and Brenda are nearby and will stop at nothing from getting their next meal. Running out of the sewers, the pair find the path abruptly stops and have no choice but climb into a toppled skyscraper. The zombies are close behind, swiping at them many times as they try to make their way up a crooked stairwell. Thomas and Brenda are tough, and both manage to knock several zombies down several stories to their death.
Just as Brenda reaches for the railing at the top, it breaks off under her weight. The woman falls through the air and crashes down into a pane of fragile glass. Regaining her senses, Brenda looks behind her to see that the only thing between her and a lethal drop to the rocks below is a thin sheet of glass, which is already cracking. Thomas makes his way down and reaches for Brenda. Standing up, the girl can hardly move without the glass cracking even more. She reaches for Thomas but can't quite take his hand. Suddenly, one final zombie appears in the doorway. It is out for blood and headed straight for Brenda. The woman knows she's as good as doomed if it gets her. Okay, this woman clearly has a death wish. She's doing everything possible to ensure that the glass breaks and she falls to her death. Even a simple grasp of physics should tell her that standing up is the worst possible thing she can do. Her entire body weight is now concentrated on the two small areas where her feet are placed. This exerts more pressure on weak spots in the already cracked glass. Brenda here should instead continue to lie flat on her back. The average surface area for an adult woman laying down is 8.6 square feet, whereas the combined surface area of both her feet is less than 1 square foot. This means that she can reduce the pressure on the glass by simply laying flat and waiting for Thomas to get to her with a rope. The safest way for her to move would actually be rolling like a log or inching sideways like a starfish. These might look silly, but they are her best shot at maintaining a large surface area in contact with the glass, while making her way towards safer panes or steady ground. If she absolutely needs to stand up, placing her feet in the middle of the glass pane is a huge mistake. The glass pane here works like a lever, with the area where the glass is fused with the metal frame being the fulcrum point. If Brenda stands in the center of the pane, she is as far away from the fulcrum as possible, meaning the glass has to exert the maximum amount of resistive force to support her weight. She should instead keep her feet as close to the fulcrum point as possible, and even place her feet on 2 different panes to cut the pressure on each panel in half. Frankly, it should not have even have gone to this point. These zombies are extremely dumb and do not seem to have any heightened senses. Back at Jorge's warehouse, the guard dog zombies could not even detect the teens in the dark till they were a few feet away. The shopping mall zombies also could not use their sense of smell or hearing to detect their prey, hiding a short distance away. This means our running is one of the least effective options for dealing with zombies, because we would be up against enemies who do not feel pain or exhaustion. Thomas here should have tried to outsmart them from the very beginning. This mound of rubble could have been used against the horde. The zombies have no sense of personal safety, and this one even knocks its buddy off a ledge by accident. If Thomas had stopped running and started kicking loose the large blocks of debris the zombies are climbing, they would just continue climbing straight into the falling hazards and be knocked off. As a last resort, Thomas and Brenda can even climb below this ledge here and hang onto the wall. The zombies are clumsy and very unlikely to know any rock climbing techniques. They would just charge over the edge trying to get to the pair. The zombie leaps onto Brenda. She fights it off, kicking and flailing to stop it from biting her. Thomas grabs a nearby pole and slides down to Brenda. Thinking quickly, he grabs her hand and shatters the glass pane, supporting her. The zombie plunges to the jagged rocks below, while he keeps a firm grip on Brenda and pulls her to safety. With all the sewer zombies dead, the pair head back to street level, but Brenda slumps to the ground, pulling up her pant leg and shows Thomas the gashes the zombie gave her. They both know that it is now only a matter of time before the infection takes her over, but decide to carry on anyway. Sometime later, they reach a community of survivors and look for a smuggler named Marcus. He's a man who's had a history of transporting kids to the mountains, and she knows Jorge will be looking for him too. Walking around, they approach this strange man looking for someone who can lead them to the right arm and their friends. He tells them that those people are inside his party, but insists they have to drink from a flask of unknown liquid to enter his club if they want more information. Desperate to find their friends, they do it, but this will be a big mistake. In the club, they see survivors dancing and partying, but can't spot their friends. That's when Thomas feels the effects of the drink and gets groggy. Stumbling around in confusion, Brenda gets close to him, saying that they may only have each other now, and pulls him in for a kiss. Though Thomas kisses her back for some time, he eventually pulls away and hallucinates he's seeing Teresa. He tells Brenda that he's already in love with someone else, and she walks away in frustration. The kid tries to follow her, but has horrific visions of his friends, and falls to the ground before quickly passing out. Sometime later, Thomas wakes up and is instantly greeted by a welcome sight. The others have found him, and everyone is safe. Looking around, he sees Jorge as the strange man tied up nearby, and is beating him for information, revealing this guy is Marcus. After some persuasion, the group finally learns where they can find the right arm. Following the directions, they drive far into the mountains, but then they encounter a problem. A line of abandoned cars are blocking the road, and they have no choice but to make their way forward on foot. That's when Thomas notices a bullet hole in one of the cars, but doesn't have a chance to warn his friend as snipers start firing at everyone. The group ducks behind the cars for cover, but can't see where the shots are coming from. There are high mountain ridges all around them, and bullets seem to be coming from all directions, but Jorge has an idea. He hands a bomb to Thomas and takes out a detonator. He wants Thomas to throw the bomb towards the shots where he can set it off and cause a distraction. Before Thomas can throw the bomb, two masked girls sneak up on them and tell them to drop the bomb. With rifles aimed at Thomas and Jorge, they order everyone to get out from their hiding spots. Okay, everything about this setup screamed trap, but these survivors still walked right into the ambush. Thomas should have considered what he knows about the right arm. These are a group of rebels in hiding from Wicked, which has seemingly unending resources to track them. It makes sense that they are very paranoid about anyone finding their base, and would have deadly security measures in place to stop intruders. In fact, the survivors are very lucky that all they encountered were human snipers, and not something more deadly like landmines or bombs planted in the abandoned cars they have to squeeze past to make it further along the road. The first thing they should do is bring a familiar face like Marcus along. He already knows enough about the right arm to know where to find them. Even if the right arm aren't on the best terms with them, they would know for certain that he would not associate with Wicked, their ultimate enemies. They should also have made their vehicle look as non-military and beat up as possible, something that the right arm would be convinced that Wicked soldiers would not be caught dead in. If they sent the strange man ahead of the main group to vouch for them, the right arm could have been persuaded not to defend their base with potentially deadly force. If I were Thomas, I would also notice right away that the abandoned cars create a deliberate choke point which forces people to get out of the safety of their vehicles and continue on foot. This section of road is also very vulnerable because it is flanked on all sides by high ridges where enemies can scout or shoot from. Seeing this, I would insist that my group not continue under the ridges. Instead, we can camp some distance away from the choke point and send out a scout to climb the ridge and report back on if there are any guards stationed there. This boy Eris would be perfect for the job. We already see that he's very sneaky and nimble, managing to make his way around the Wicked facility using the air vents completely undetected. The boy is also resourceful, knowing that he had to split up from the main group in order to open the outer door. If Eris sneaks up and manages to catch one of the guards alone on the ridge, this gives him the chance to talk to the right arm without exchanging gunfire and explain that they are all on the same side. Even if they do not believe him at first, Eris can show them the tattoos all victims of Wicked have been branded with on the back of his neck. These tattoos contain vital information such as where Eris is meant to be imprisoned, as well as that he's immune to the virus. This makes him and his friends very valuable to the right arm, people they would definitely want to join them in their fight against Wicked and mission to stay free. With all the survivors cornered, the masked girls look like they were about to shoot them, but at the last second, one of the women recognizes Eris. They're relieved to see him and rush up to hug him. These girls were part of Eris's group in the Death Maze. They trust Eris and know that the group he's traveling with has to be trusted too. The girls remove their mask and whistle a signal up into the ridges. Thomas looks up and spots a bunch of snipers emerging from the ledge above them. With that out of the way, the group is finally taken to the Right Arm organization, who run an outpost surrounded by stone ridges and are brought to meet the leader, Vince. The man comes out to greet them, but then he notices that something is wrong with Brenda. She starts to shake and collapse into the floor. Checking on her, the leader spots her infected leg and draws his gun. He knows that any infected person is a threat to his entire community, and Thomas tries to bargain for her life, but it's no use. Just before the leader can kill Brenda, the outpost doctor steps forward and says there is a way to save her. This woman recognizes Thomas, explaining that she was a former Wicked employee just like him, and that he was the one who leaked the locations of every experiment being run to the rebels. The doctor heads to the infirmary so the girl can be treated and has Thomas come along. She knows that his blood can help Brenda, as it can be used to make a serum that reverses the effects of the virus for a few months. After creating the serum, she gives Brenda the injection and insists there's not much else they can do for her. As the teens settle in, Thomas spots Teresa alone on a ledge above them. He joins her and they talk while watching the sun set. The girl shares a story about how her mother got infected with the flare virus and ended up clawing out her own eyes. She says that this is happening to millions of people around the world and that they have to do something to stop it. Looking heartbroken, Teresa explains that Wicked is the only way mankind can develop a cure and begs Thomas to understand why she did what she did. Thomas is horrified, spotting lights in the distance getting closer, and realizes that she has given Wicked their location. Teresa asks him to stop trying to fight them and just go with them, as helicopters start to fly towards the outpost. Thomas scrambles back to the outpost, only to see it being blown up by rockets fired by the aircraft. Wicked soldiers storm the outpost, subduing everyone in their way. The right armed leader rushes for a heavy machine gun mounted on a truck. He starts to load ammo into the weapon as Thomas's friends stay nearby and provide cover fire. Before he can shoot, a Wicked soldier throws an electric grenade, which explodes and shocks them all unconscious. Thomas watches all this helplessly as he hides nearby with Jorge and Brenda. He tells them to save themselves because Wicked isn't after them. They reluctantly agree, leaving Thomas to look around for any idea on how he can save his friends. Okay, this is terrifying. Wicked claims to be trying to save humanity, yet they are willing to fire rockets into this community of people with zero care who they kill. It is clear they are out for blood, and the survivors will have to be equally ruthless to beat them. If Teresa is seeing all of this and still on Wicked's side, then she's a lost cause. This means that Thomas needs to let go of his feelings for her and can use her against their enemies without feeling guilty. If I were in his shoes, I would pretend to agree with her and promise that I will go with Wicked willingly. This gives me the chance to pick up my backpack and hand Teresa's hers as a gesture that we are ready to go back to our old lives. Except I would plant this bomb in Teresa's bag while keeping the detonator with me. It's small enough to hide in my shoe or waistband, places the soldiers would not think to search. Wicked may be suspicious of my change of heart, but they know that Teresa has always been in their pocket and will not check her bag. Once Teresa gets close to key leaders like Jansen or even Ava Page back at the Wicked headquarters, this is the perfect opportunity to trigger the bomb and get rid of all of our problems at the same time. With Page dead, Wicked may have no further capabilities to research a cure by exploiting teenagers and might abandon the project entirely. Even without this secret plan to blow Wicked up from the inside, the rebels are morons for not using the terrain around them to their full advantage. The outpost is surrounded by ridges which can serve as lookout points, and the right arm is known to send their men to these high spots. There's even one right beside their base, which Teresa was standing on. This cliff would have been the perfect place to station a lookout armed with an anti-aircraft rocket launcher who could have prevented the entire attack before it even begins. Helicopters are notoriously one of the most unsafe modes of transport in the world. Even if they don't have heavy artillery, a few well-placed shots from a rifle into its engine would cause the Wicked choppers to crash before they can do any real harm. Another advantage the right arm has over the soldiers is that this is the first ever time Wicked is seeing their outpost and community. Instead of fleeing or trying to fight back through brute force, Thomas, the outpost leader, need to be more cunning. Knowing that Wicked's main objective is to capture the teens alive and run further experiments on them, Thomas here should tell the right arm leader to order most of his men to hide in the surrounding tents and pretend to take him hostage. If Wicked genuinely believes he's willing to kill the boy, they'll be desperate to get up close to negotiate. That's when the men in the tents can spring an ambush and turn the tides on the soldiers. Later that night, the Wicked soldiers capture everyone in the outpost and force them to kneel on the ground. As Jansen takes count of his new captives, Thomas yells out to him and lets himself get captured. The man punches him in the stomach and makes him join the other prisoners. That's when a new transport craft arrives, carrying Dr. Ava Page and even more soldiers. She approaches the group and Teresa joins Page. It's clear to the boys that she's betrayed them and given their location to Wicked. That's when the woman sees the outpost doctor, who asks her if she feels guilty for anything that she has done, but Page says that she doesn't. With one last look, Jansen draws his gun and kills the helpless woman. Overcome with rage at seeing his friend killed, the right arm leader shouts at Jansen and Page. Thomas seizes the opportunity to break free of the soldier's grip and pulls Jorge's bomb out of his jacket. He places his thumb on the detonator and says that he would rather die than go back with Wicked as their prisoner. Thomas's three remaining friends stand by him, feeling the same way, and get close so that the bomb will kill them too. Jansen and Page panic. They beg the boys not to do it, but Thomas won't back down. Just as he's about to push the button and blow them all up, a truck speeds out of nowhere and rams into a helicopter. Jorge has returned to save them. Deadly shrapnel flies everywhere as the helicopter blows up, and the Wicked soldiers disperse to take cover. Thomas throws the bomb at the soldiers and sets it off, allowing everyone to get free. Completely enraged, Jansen knocks Thomas to the ground and pulls out a pistol, ready to kill him for his interference. At the last moment, Brenda shoots Jansen in the shoulder and saves Thomas's life. A massive firefight erupts, with Jorge, Brenda, and all the outpost survivors exchanging gunfire with the soldiers. The leader gets to his machine gun and opens fire, mowing down many soldiers. The boys manage to take out quite a few soldiers before Mino is hit with a taser round and falls over paralyzed. With the Wicked soldiers regaining the upper hand, Thomas can do nothing to save them. The soldiers drag Mino back to the transport craft, and Thomas watches helplessly as the aircraft's doors shut on his friend before it flies away, leaving the rebels behind. The next day, the remaining survivors are devastated by their losses, but the leader is ready to move on and suggests they come with their group where it'll be safe. Thomas explains that he won't be joining them and wants to go back to Wicked to save Mino. His friends try to tell him that he stands no chance, but Thomas will not change his mind. His resolve eventually sways them all, and they agree to join him in rescuing Mino and taking Wicked down, and more importantly, ending the scourge of twin dystopian sci-fi movie adaptations before it's too late.
But what do you think? How would you beat Maze Runner, The Scorched Tribes? Let me know with a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How To Beat playlist for more videos like this. And don't forget that from now on, we'll be uploading on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Until next time, have a damn good day.
If you were the only person who can save the world from a deadly virus, what would you do? The Earth is mostly destroyed, very few humans are left, and everyone is fighting each other to the death. So I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the incurable plague in Maze Runner: The Death Cure. Several years in the future, the world is in ruins from a deadly virus, which turns humans into rage-filled zombies. This young man has the cure, but he's about to lose everyone he loves while caught in the middle of an all-out war. Thomas here is on a rescue mission. Him and his team spot a heavily guarded train traveling through the desert and decide it is time to strike. Thomas and the rebel leader climb onto the train, but just as they're moving on the train car, they're spotted right away by a flying VTOL escorting the locomotive. The vehicle starts shooting at his friends and chases them away. With guards coming out to stop them, the rebel leader quickly blows up the connection between carriages. This stops the end carriages in their tracks, while the guards are taken forward with the rest of the train. Only a short distance away, the train breaks. Guards start jumping off and charging back towards them. Thomas knows it is only a matter of time before they are all killed. He pounds on the wall of the carriage and hears people screaming inside. The train is full of teenagers with their hands chained up. Thomas's friends rush to cut through the side of the train with a blowtorch as the guards show up and shoot at them. Suddenly, their teammates arrive from the captured VTOL, and the group on the train car managed to hook it to the massive aircraft overhead. At the very last second, everyone climbs aboard, and the aircraft lifts the carriage off the ground, flying away and leaving the angry guards behind. Back at their base, Thomas's team opens the carriage and are glad the teenagers inside are okay. Thomas checks on the survivors, but is disappointed that his friend Mino is not there, since rescuing the boy had been his main goal for the mission. Mino was kidnapped by an organization called Wicked, who has taken over the world and are obsessed with trying to find a cure for the flare virus, which has wiped out most of humanity. Despite this noble goal, they are extremely ruthless and torture teenagers in hopes of extracting a cure from them. Wicked targets those who are immune to the virus, like Mino and Thomas, and will stop at nothing till they find a cure. Later, the rebel leader makes a speech to all survivors at the base. He promises that they are working to fix the massive ship in the harbor, and that everyone can use it to sail away and start new lives very soon. The survivors are relieved to hear this after being tortured by Wicked for weeks. In private, Thomas tries to convince the rebel leader to help him rescue Mino, who's being kept at the last city, the headquarters of Wicked, but the man refuses. He wants to help the other teenagers start anew and cannot afford another confrontation with Wicked. Despite this setback, Thomas is still determined to save his friend from Wicked by himself. That night, he starts to sneak away from the base, but runs to his old friend Newt. The skinny teen says he knows Thomas is leaving to rescue Mino and wants to join him. Another teen, Frypan, who is also close to Thomas and Newt, comes along as well. Okay, Thomas here is completely out of his mind. Looking at how the train rescue played out, Thomas's team had 6 soldiers, multiple vehicles, and an entire aircraft at their disposal, and they still barely got away from Wicked. This happened in the desert too, where Thomas had the element of surprise. 3 teenage boys charging into Wicked's heavily guarded headquarters with absolutely no strategy is a surefire way to get everyone killed. To make things worse, Wicked has control over 2 of his close friends who know everything about Thomas and how he thinks. He knows Mino is already being tortured in a sick effort to find a cure. It is only natural to assume that Wicked will also not hesitate to torture him to find out everything he knows about Thomas's tactics. His former friend Teresa is also working for Wicked now, and the girl has already betrayed Thomas because she believed in Wicked's cause. Since she was willing to put her friends in the line of fire to help Wicked, she has certainly already told them everything she knows about Thomas too. That means that on top of having more soldiers, weapons, and security, the enemy already has all the information they need to stay 2 steps ahead of Thomas at every turn. Thomas here is the single worst person to be launching an attack on Wicked. The only way to rescue Mino would be with a stealthy approach over brute force, and the trainload of teenagers Thomas just rescued is the key to breaking into Wicked. This boy Eris is already loyal to Thomas and has shown to be very smart and agile. He was previously able to memorize Wicked's security protocol and sneak through the air vents to gain information. If I were in Thomas's shoes, I would beg Eris for this personal favor. The boy's good nature and friendship with Mino will compel him to agree. Once Eris is on our side, we can send him back out into the desert near where we attacked the train. The mission here is for him to infiltrate Wicked and help to sneak Mino back out. Since the escape was so panicked and chaotic, it is very believable that some teenagers might have fallen out of the carriage as the aircraft was flying away. For good measure, we could even bind Eris's hands in a broken chain, similar to the one connecting him to the carriage, to make it seem like he came directly from falling off the train. Wicked patrols will find the boy quickly enough and bring him back to headquarters. Since he's immune to the virus just like Mino, they will even place him in the same holding area as the other teenager. Once inside, Eris can try to find Mino and break him out. We could give him small, undetectable tools, such as a skeleton key, sleeping pills to subdue the guards, and an earpiece to help him with this mission. At Wicked's labs, scientists force Mino to experience violent hallucinations in order to extract fluid from his brain they need for the cure. This girl Teresa is a scientist for Wicked and a part of the experiments they are inflicting on Mino. While she has chosen to work for Wicked, she's also another old friend of Thomas and Mino. Teresa looks horrified as her friend screams in pain, but continues with her work, convinced that this needs to be done to find a cure. Meanwhile, Thomas and his two friends reach a tunnel along their journey. The teens start to drive through it and spot an infected human in their way, almost immediately. As they slow down to try and sneak past it, their Jeep is suddenly overwhelmed by more of these zombies. The Jeep speeds away from the growling horde, but only makes it a short distance before hitting an obstacle and flipping over. The teens are okay, but now have to make it on foot. Hearing the horde catching up to them, Frypan shoots a few zombies, but they just keep coming. They run down the tunnel and are horrified to see another horde charging at them from the other end. The boys are completely surrounded and severely outnumbered. With their ammo quickly running out, there's no way they can get out of this on their own. Suddenly, another vehicle rams through the horde and stops beside the teens. Their friend Brenda throws the door open and tells them to come on board. The friends scramble onto the truck as Brenda's friend Jorge drives them out of the tunnel to safety. Brenda and Jorge left the rebel base to join their friends after they noticed they had sneaked off. After driving for some time, the group arrive at an overlook and spot their destination. This is the Last City, Wicked's headquarters, and where their friends are being held prisoner. The people living inside are all loyal to Wicked, hoarding resources and living luxurious lives while leaving everyone outside to die. The Last City is surrounded by high walls and guarded by heavily armed soldiers. Jorge explains that no one can get in. Nonetheless, they decide to drive down for a closer look. Arriving outside the Last City, the group see that the streets have become overcrowded slums. Everyone looks dirty and miserable. They are all struggling to get by with what little resources Wicked has left for them. A group of insurgents drive down the road. They catch the crowd's attention and shout that Wicked is the cause of their suffering and must be taken down. This is met with huge cheers from everyone around them. At that moment, Thomas spots some Wicked aircraft flying overhead, but there's a problem. These crafts have detected him without him knowing. At Wicked headquarters, screens alert the soldiers that Thomas is among the masses right outside their city. This man Jansen is the lead soldier and most ruthless of them all. He sees Thomas's face in the screens and commands his men to get the guns online, determined to kill Thomas at any cost. Thomas and his friends approach the gates to the Last City. There's already a crowd of people there waving signs and throwing rocks, demanding that Wicked save them and let them in. Okay, unless everyone on Wicked somehow lost all their memories, walking right up to the gates is a huge mistake. Thomas should know that he's literally the most wanted man on Earth at the moment. Wicked wants to capture him for both his role as the leader of a rebel group and as a test subject, since he's the teenager with the strongest immunity to the virus. Even if he doesn't realize that the planes have spotted him, he can see that there are dozens of guards and cameras along the gate. These are all trained to scan the crowd to look for threats such as weapons or known insurgent leaders, meaning it is literally their main job to spot and recognize Thomas the moment he shows himself. If any reconnaissance needs to be done near the wall or in places patrolled by Wicked, only Brenda and Jorge should be allowed to do so. They are both not on Wicked's radar at all and can easily pass as regular civilians living in the surrounding slums. Furthermore, driving along main roads and especially going through the tunnel were equally stupid. Thomas knows that Wicked sends out routine patrols by land and air all the time, specifically to prevent their enemies from getting to them. It makes sense that a bottleneck like the tunnel on one of the only roads towards their headquarters would be under heavy surveillance. This is an especially huge risk considering that Thomas's team pulled off a successful ambush on Wicked's train very recently, sending Wicked into high alert. Thomas here should also know that the infected prefer dark places, and the tunnel will be their #1 vacation spot during the day. He's extremely lucky that his friends showed up in the nick of time, and that Wicked are also huge morons who did not bother to monitor the tunnel. All these odds are simply too large to overcome. No one even knows if Mino's even still alive or not, or what condition he will be in. It's heartbreaking to consider, but this may very well have come to a point where Thomas has to see that one friend's life is now worth risking his own and 4 others. Everyone has a chance to escape for good and start a new life if they return to the rebel leader and help him with the plan to sail away. If I were Thomas, I would recognize that this is best for everyone and that the most I can do for Mino now is to try and trick Wicked into giving him a comfortable life. Using radio broadcasts, I would fake a series of transmissions into the area around the Last City, spreading information that rebel scientists have found they have managed to find a cure, and that this cure can only be created using the fluid secreted by the brains of immune teenagers when they are kept happy and comfortable. This rumor will eventually get picked up by Wicked, where they will try replicating the results since they are desperate. It's a long shot, but this is really the only thing we can do for Mino without risking everyone's lives. Nude senses that something is wrong and looks around, spotting a group of masked men approaching them from behind. The group tense up and draw their weapons, ready to be ambushed. At that moment, the massive gates to the Last City start to creak with loud mechanical noises. It sounds terrifying. Something like this has never happened before. Huge turrets emerge from the city gates. Without warning, they start to fire missiles into the helpless people below. Chaos erupts instantly as everyone tramples one another, running for their lives. Thomas's group take cover down an alley, but do not manage to get far. They are suddenly surrounded by the masked men, who grab them all and force them into vehicles. The masked men take the friends to their hideout, where there are dozens of others like them. One of the men removes his mask, and Thomas recognizes him immediately. It's Gally, a former teammate who never got along with Thomas and tried to kill him when under the influence of poison. Thomas attacks him, but Gally insists that they are on the same side now. Realizing he has no other choice, Thomas agrees to work with Gally's group. Gally takes Thomas and his friends to see his leader. This badly disfigured man is the head of the insurgents, the masked men Thomas has seen all over the city. The disfigured man explains to Thomas that he wants to destroy Wicked too, and that they can help each other against this common enemy. Thomas asks if the man has a plan to do this, and the man confirms that he has, but it will need Thomas in order to work. Thomas is skeptical, and the man doesn't make things better by proclaiming that he will not be letting Thomas's friends go as a way to ensure Thomas remains loyal to them. That night, Gally takes Tommy and Newt right up to the concrete wall circling the last city. They sneak in and climb to the top of the wall. Using a telescope, the boys see that the Wicked headquarters in the last city is a heavily defended fortress swarming with soldiers. This is where Mino is being held. Gally urges Thomas to have a look to see why he's so vile to their plans. Glancing through the telescope, Thomas sees Teresa working in her lab inside the headquarters. The plan now becomes clear to Thomas. Gally's team believes that he's the only one Teresa cares about enough to give them an in to the Wicked's headquarters. Thomas refuses to use Teresa to break into the city. Hearing this, the usually mild-mannered Newt is furious. He slams Thomas into a wall and yells at him, reminding the young man that Teresa helped Wicked capture Mino in the first place, and that Thomas should be focusing on saving Mino. Newt is surprised by his own outburst and walks away, leaving everyone to stew in a stunned silence. Okay, Thomas here is being way too trusting when he has no reason to be. While both Gally and the insurgent leader may be genuine in their offers to help, Thomas should not be too quick to go along with their plans until he has a better understanding of the types of people they are and what their agenda may be. From the statements his followers use to rile up the crowd, the insurgent leader is clearly bitter about Wicked hoarding resources and wants his people to get their fair share. A man like this might be motivated to trade Thomas to Wicked in exchange for more privileges for his people. Thomas's old rival Gally also presents a completely separate set of issues. He has known ties to Wicked and has clashed with Thomas in the past. Thomas should remember that his team previously left Gally for dead in a facility full of Wicked soldiers. It is a very real possibility that Wicked took him in and helped him to recover. This means that Gally may now be secretly working for Wicked to spy on the insurgent leader. Thomas should pretend to believe Gally and question him on how he survived and how he managed to escape to join the insurgents. If his rival attempts to brush off this line of questioning or acts out of character, such as in pretending that he has a close friendship with Thomas, these would be clear signs that he's lying about his intentions. Thomas should also approach one of the low-level insurgents for more information. If Thomas can strike up a conversation with one of them, he can casually bring up how Gally came to join their group. This will be a bit tricky, since if Gally is indeed lying to him, Thomas has no idea whether the insurgent leader or his men are in on it too. The rude and cold insurgent leader may consider his foot soldiers nothing more than cannon fodder, and will not loop them into any secret plans him or Gally may have. The only way to extract useful information from the man he speaks with would be to set up a ruse. Instead of asking this low-level man about the version Gally gave him, Thomas should make up his own version of how Gally joined the insurgents. If everyone has been instructed to lie to him, the other guy will think this is Gally's cover story and agree with the fake story Thomas gives. Or if the guy is honest, he will correct Thomas and offer the accurate version of how Gally joined the insurgents as he remembers it. Gally has been trapped in a maze till just a few months ago, so most of the other men should be more senior than him and remember how he joined. If the story matches what Gally has told him, Thomas will know that his rival has indeed reformed and that he can now be trusted. The next day, Thomas goes to look for Newt. He finds Fred sitting on a roof looking quite sad. Newt apologizes to Thomas for snapping at him. He rolls up his sleeve to show Thomas that he caught the virus. The veins on his arm are already dark and swollen, and the infection will only get worse as it spreads to his body. Thomas is devastated for his friend. He assures Newt that they will find a cure for him. The skinny teenager tells Thomas not to worry about him and to keep focused on saving Mino. He urges Thomas to do everything he can to rescue their friend, even if it means using Teresa to break in. Inside the last city, Teresa arranges to meet with Mino. The guy looks terrible. After being put through that much pain by Wicked, Mino is ragged and barely coherent. Teresa pleads with him to understand. She explains that what they are doing to him is part of a greater purpose, and that finding a cure will help him save thousands of innocent lives. Mino is not convinced. He shouts that she's a traitor and slams Teresa
Teresa onto the table. The soldiers rush in and restrain him, but not before the teen grabs a sharp object off the table and hides it in his clothes. Later, Teresa leaves the lab and heads home. While at a crosswalk, she spots Thomas across the road and is shocked to see him here. Thomas walks away, but she follows him to a quiet shelter within the city. The young man finally emerges and walks up to Teresa. He asks her if she regrets betraying them by telling Wicked their location and getting Mino captured. She tells him that though she is sorry, she still believes it was right and will make the same decision again. Thomas signals to someone behind her, and Gally suddenly appears and slips a hood over Teresa's face, capturing her. Taking her to a more private location, Thomas asks Teresa to cut out the trackers Wicked has implanted in the back of their necks, and the young woman agrees to help. While working to remove the tracker from Thomas's neck, Teresa says she's surprised to see that Brenda is still so healthy. She asks how he has been managing to replenish her serum. Confused, Thomas tells her that Brenda only took one serum months ago. The young woman is stunned to hear this. She explains that serums do not work that way, and that Brenda should have succumbed to her infection weeks ago. Thomas grows uncomfortable and refuses to continue the conversation. At a top floor within Wicked's headquarters, Jansen enters a room overlooking the city and finds the head doctor having a drink. The woman looks defeated and has Jansen concerned. She tells him the virus has gone airborne and is already inside the city. Anyone not already infected will get infected and die within a month. Jansen pushes her to set up another, more exclusive safe zone and to step up experimenting on the immune teenagers they have locked up. The doctor is unconvinced. She tells Jansen there's no point anymore and will not continue with her work. Okay, things just got downright hopeless. Now that the virus is airborne, there is literally no way to stop the infection from reaching everyone on Earth. Thomas here has even missed some vital pieces of information that can prevent all of this. With Newt getting infected, this means that the virus is now evolving to spread in ways other than zombie bites, and that this new strain of the virus can infect people previously thought to be uninfectable. In contrast, Brenda has been bitten months ago and has stayed healthy after being injected with a serum made from Thomas's blood. This contradicts the effects of all known serums, which have shown to wear out after a few weeks. Thomas should have realized that this abnormality is no coincidence, and that there's something special about his blood in particular. Newt has even told him to his face that there's a difference between people who are just resistant to the virus like Newt, and people who are outright immune like Thomas. Immunity works because natural antibodies within a person's blood and tissues bind to invading viruses, allowing white blood cells to destroy them. This is clearly what has happened with Brenda, because she went from infected to healthy, meaning the viruses in her body have been eliminated. If the antibodies in Thomas's blood are the only one in the world capable of killing the virus completely, it is worth a shot experimenting with that theory. If Thomas has a suitable donor blood type to Newt, they can try performing a small transfusion of Thomas's blood to Newt. If the skinny boy starts to show signs of recovery, then Thomas will know that a complicated serum manufacturing process is not needed. His blood can act as the cure if transfused directly to infected people. If I were in his shoes, I would draw out a full pint of my blood for research and testing. Then, I would keep half the sample for my team to work with Teresa on testing. If we are able to manufacture a serum en masse on our own, that would be a huge step forward. It might seem silly, but I would actually send the other half pint to Wicked. Even though they are our enemies, Wicked does genuinely want to cure the virus and has access to infinitely more scientists and resources than our team. The blood can be kept fresh if sealed in an airtight bag and packed into a cooler box with ice and insulation, keeping the temperature around 39 degrees Fahrenheit. I would attach a note to the cooler explaining how this is the blood of someone completely immune to the virus, and how serum created from this blood has managed to permanently cure an infected woman. This cooler can then be left near the walls surrounding the city. Teresa can advise us on how to get in touch with the head doctor, where we can give her a call instructing her to pick up the sample. Gally starts to question Teresa. She willingly tells the group everything she knows about Mino's location and about the other captured teenagers. Teresa also explains that they will need her thumbprint to access the building. Gally threatens to cut off her thumb, but Thomas pushes for Teresa to come with them when they break in, which she does not object to. Without anyone noticing, Teresa grabs one of the bandages stained with Thomas's blood off the table and takes it with her. Sometime later, Thomas, Newt, and Gally dress as Wicked soldiers. They escort Teresa back into Wicked headquarters. No one notices that anything is wrong since they all recognize Teresa. Newt starts to feel the effects of his infection. He gets dizzy and starts to cough, needing to rest for a moment before he can continue. With Teresa's help, the group make it into the bunks and free the other teenage prisoners, but Mino is nowhere to be found. Teresa checks the database and notices that he has been moved to the medical wing in a separate separate part of the building. Gally stays behind to help the kidnapped teenagers to pick up the serums, while Thomas and Newt escort her there. Things only get from bad to worse when they're intercepted by Jansen and his men along the way. During a tense standoff, Teresa pushes the boys into the medical wing and triggers an alarm to shut them in. Jansen can't get the door open and is furious with Teresa, accusing her of helping them get away. She argues that all she did was help Jansen trap them inside, and the man seems to buy her story. Teresa reminds him not to kill them, as they're immune to the virus and vital to finding the cure. Thomas and Newt run through the medical wing, taking out the soldiers rushing at them from all directions. Just as one of the soldiers has them cornered, Mino ambushes them from behind and throws the man through a glass panel. Mino has managed to escape on his own and is relieved to see his friends. The three of them quickly try to make their way out, but find guards hunting them down at every corner. With no other choice, they lock themselves in a room just before Jansen can reach them. The friends are completely trapped and are running out of time fast. Jansen's men start to saw through the metal, and it's clear that the door is not going to hold out for long. Desperate for another option, the friends smash the room's windows and look down. It's a terrifying 10-story drop to the reflecting pool underneath. They're reluctant to jump, but know that there's no other choice. Taking a running start, the teens leap out the window and plunge into the dark water below. After a short moment, all three emerge from the surface gasping for air, but alive. Jansen breaks into the room and stares helplessly down at them. Thomas flashes a signal to the window above, telling the men exactly how he feels about it, and Jansen walks away in disgust. Okay, this plan was a huge disaster from the start. Since neither Thomas or Newt is willing to kill Teresa, setting them off alone with her means that their team has just lost all leverage. This young woman is a known traitor and was directly responsible for giving Wicked the team's location and allowing them to kill many people in the past. This means that Thomas and Newt are completely at her mercy and will be captured immediately if she chooses to yell out for help the moment she sees Jansen. To make things worse, Thomas knows Newt is infected and is at risk at turning on them at any time. It's not even a question of loyalty. Newt might be Thomas's most trusted friend in the world, but the virus will turn him into a violent monster at any point. This is not something that Newt can control at all. Thomas's feelings for Teresa and Newt's infection makes them the exact wrong people to send on this mission. Someone like Gally, who Teresa might actually believe is willing to kill her, or Brenda, who Teresa knows has no loyalty to her, would be far better choices to be her escorts. Since the team do not know what Teresa herself is thinking, the only way to ensure she sticks with the plan is if she's with the people she genuinely believes will hurt her if she steps out of line. If I were Thomas, I would even take it a step further. I would point out that the best option is actually to keep Teresa as a hostage and use her as her backup leverage against Wicked. In terms of infiltrating the facility, she's really only useful for her access cards and her fingerprints. The insurgents working with us have a citywide presence and many resources. They will be able to give the team some basic supplies to replicate Teresa's fingerprints. Teresa could then be asked to press her thumbs into any moldable putty we can find, leaving grooves of the putty which correspond with her fingerprints. Liquid latex can then be spread over the molds, creating duplicates of her thumbprints when it cools. Fingerprint scanners have been known to work through latex gloves, and Wicked no doubt uses the best quality scanners which can detect prints on latex. It is very likely that we can slip the duplicate thumbprints over our thumbs, then use them to access Wicked headquarters without Teresa. As for the girl, she's too valuable to bring back into the city and risk her signaling for help or escaping. If the team sneaking into Wicked fails, we can still use Teresa as a bargaining chip and offer to trade her for Mino. The doctors have other teenagers to experiment on and might be willing to let Mino go, but Teresa is one of the main scientists working on the cure and is irreplaceable to them. If Thomas approaches someone more rational, such as the head doctor, instead of someone with a vendetta against them like Jansen, Wicked is likely to accept and let Mino go. Gally takes the other teenagers to the parking garage where Brenda is waiting with a bus. They help the teens get on board, but are worried that neither of them has heard from Thomas. Gally tells Brenda to stay with the teens while he goes to find Thomas. After he leaves, Brenda spots some soldiers nearby and tells everyone to duck down. The soldiers get suspicious anyway and start to advance on the bus. With no other choice, Brenda starts the bus and speeds out of the garage, ramming into the soldiers. The passengers scream in terror as she races their vehicle to the outskirts of the city. Wicked soldiers drive after them, staying hot on their heels the entire time. Brenda finally reaches a roadblock as the soldiers pull up behind her. They're trapped. The woman tells everyone else to stay put as she exits the bus with her hands up. The soldiers demand that she drop the gun in her hand, but she instead fires it into the air. It's a flare gun. A bright red flare flies into the dark sky above the standoff, and in the control room of a crane, Fry Pan sees it floating above the city. He's ready for Brenda's signal, releasing a massive hook and dropping it right beside the waiting woman. Brenda attaches it to the front of the bus and rushes back on board. Before the soldiers can get to them, the hook pulls up and swings the bus into the air. Fry Pan swivels the whole bus over the city and gets them to the other side of the wall. He releases the hook and drops the vehicle outside the city. The teenagers are frozen in place by the horrifying fall, but are relieved to have finally escaped the last city. Gally quickly rejoins with the 3 boys still trapped in the city and updates Thomas on the situation. When they try to move, Newt starts coughing uncontrollably and has trouble even standing up. Outside the city, the insurgent leader rallies hundreds of his followers to launch a final attack on Wicked's territory. They are sick of Wicked's inhuman treatment of them and are prepared to die to take their enemy down with them. The disfigured man leads the charge, riding a vehicle full of explosives at full speed into the city's gates. It explodes on impact and sends Wicked's first line of defense crumbling down in a massive ball of fire. With the wall breached, the massive insurgents storm the city. A violent firefight breaks out between the Wicked soldiers and the insurgents on the streets, trying to find a way out of the city. Thomas's group is caught in the crossfire. Explosions go off all around them, and things look bleak for the friends. Sensing that he will not be able to make it out, Thomas radios Brenda, telling her to save herself and to get the rescued teenagers to safety. Brenda hears an aircraft approaching and runs to greet it. It is Jorge and the rebel leader, who has finally come to help the survivors with their cause. Brenda tells Thomas not to give up, and that she will be coming to him. Okay, this is a massive stroke of luck that Thomas needs to make the most of. With the insurgents attacking, all Wicked soldiers are now fighting for their lives. He and his friends are no longer their main priority and have completely fallen off Wicked's radar. All they need to focus on now is to lay low and not be mistaken as the enemy by either party. If I were Thomas, I would advise my friends to drop our guns and tactical gear right now. Both sides are fighting with missiles and rockets, blowing everything up in sight. Our small handguns will no longer be of any use up against these weapons anyway. The explosions have also no doubt caused many casualties along the streets. We can stay behind cover and sink up to some dead bodies to steal their clothes. Using these civilian clothes to pose as regular people fleeing from the battle will be our best chance for survival. Both the Wicked soldiers and insurgents will see us as 3 more of the dozens of terrified citizens running for their lives and leave us alone to focus on each other. This even works well with Newt's current condition, as it will just look like we are carrying an injured friend away from the battle, making us seem less threatening. While the first instinct might be to run towards the giant hole the insurgents just blasted through the city walls, this would be a terrible idea. This is currently the only known entrance point into the city, and will be overrun with insurgents charging in to attack the city. The group's best bet would be to push down the instinct to leave through the main gates, and instead try to remain undetected and get to the outskirts of the city. Residential areas not closely associated with Wicked will make the ideal hiding spot, as these will be among the last buildings targeted by the insurgents. Thomas can then call for help from one of the many allies he has outside the city's walls. Instead of radioing Brenda to say goodbye, he should have put her to work to save him and his friends. The woman is clearly in love with him and would stop at nothing to save his life. He should ask Brenda to instruct Frypan to climb into the crane above the city once again. He could then act as lookout for Thomas from his high vantage point. The hook attached to the crane is still intact after the bus rescue. This means that Thomas can repeat the same rescue plan with his team, with Frypan swiveling the crane and dropping the hook near where they are hiding. Once their lifeline has been deployed, all the boys need to do is grab onto it and let Frypan lift them up and over the city's walls. When the boys try to move Newt toward the pickup point, they fight him in bad shape. The infection has reached his face and black fluid oozes from his mouth. The infection has progressed and it's clear he'll become a zombified crank. After an emotional goodbye, Nino and Gally run ahead to get help for Newt. Thomas stays with him and begs him to hold on. Newt takes off his necklace and gives it to Thomas before losing consciousness. Making their way through the city, Thomas tries to drag his body onward but isn't strong enough. Suddenly, Teresa's voice echoes throughout the entire city. Using the bandages stained with Thomas's blood, she has invented a serum that destroys the virus entirely. She uses the city's broadcast system to tell Thomas about her discovery and asks him to come back so she can make more serum with his blood. Before Thomas can make a decision, Newt's body gets up. The infection has fully taken over. Newt gets up and attacks Thomas. As the boys struggle, the real Newt reemerges for a short time and begs Thomas to kill him. After a short struggle, Thomas reluctantly kills his friend by stabbing him in the heart. Heartbroken, he looks down at his friend's body as Brenda arrives. Instead of going with her, Thomas walks away, determined to find Teresa and help her make a cure. He goes to the Wicked headquarters where he sees the head doctor. She tells him that Teresa is telling the truth and that Thomas's blood can save everyone. The woman is suddenly shot in the back by Jansen, who then quickly knocks Thomas out. When he comes to, Thomas finds himself strapped to a gurney in the lab. Teresa has extracted his blood and is using it to make a cure serum while Jansen watches. When the serum is ready, she gives it to Jansen. The man shows Thomas that he's now infected and seems desperate for a cure. Before he can inject himself with the cure, Teresa smashes a beaker over his head and knocks him out. She starts to untie Thomas, but only manages to get one of his arms free before Jansen grabs her and throws her across the room. Thomas frees himself and helps her fend off Jansen. The pair grab the serum and escape down the hallway as Jansen shoots at them. They make it to an observation room for the infected test subjects and lock themselves in. To Teresa's horror, Thomas has been shot in the stomach. He can barely walk and collapses to the ground as Jansen breaks in. The soldier starts to hunt for them in the dark room, but can't see anyone besides the zombies locked in their glass cells. He eventually finds Teresa and demands that she tell him where Thomas Thomas's. The man doesn't even seem to care about the serum anymore and just wants revenge on the teenager. Just as Jansen is about to shoot Teresa, Thomas throws a piece of lab equipment at him. The man ducks out of the way easily, but the glass behind him shatters and frees the zombies from their cell. They pounce on Jansen immediately and tear the man apart as Thomas and Teresa make their way out of the lab. Okay, things are completely out of hand, and Teresa should never have let it go this far. If Jansen is willing to kill the head doctor, who is a high-ranking leader within Wicked, this means the man is completely unhinged and desperate, even if he didn't tell her. It is not hard to guess that the man is infected and totally out for himself now. This means that he doesn't care about maintaining his ties with Wicked and has no reason to keep Teresa alive after she creates the cure for him. This means that her deciding to help him create the actual cure was a big mistake. She should have realized even though the man has a gun, she had the upper hand by far within a lab setting. The lab contains strong anesthetics and hallucinogens. Teresa has seen firsthand that these powerful drugs were used to subdue Mino and put him in a trance-like state. Knowing this, she should have drawn Thomas's blood and gone through the motions, making a big show of mixing up a cure for Jansen. It doesn't matter what she puts into it, so long as it contains a huge dose of the anesthetic to knock the man out. In the same way the infection affected Newt, Jansen will be experiencing symptoms like coughing and dizziness. This will leave the man impaired and more prone to act rashly. In addition, he has always underestimated Teresa and thinks he has the upper hand, since he has a weapon and Thomas is tied up. Teresa should know that these factors will cause him to not even check any serum she gives him and will go to administer it to himself right away. Once the man is unconscious, Teresa can tie him up to make sure that he can't get back up and surprise them. Even though the man now has a grudge against her and Thomas and is exactly the type of person to hunt them down for revenge, he will not remain a threat for long. Within hours, the infection will completely take him over and leave him incapable of complex thought. Jansen will be reduced to a vicious zombie operating purely on instinct and will forget all about any unfinished business he has with Teresa or Thomas. Teresa can then inject Thomas with adrenaline to wake him up. She will need his strength and tactical skills, along with her knowledge of the layout of Wicked's headquarters in the city, in order for them to escape before the entire area is destroyed by the insurgents. Teresa can even take any chemicals and equipment she needs to create the cure elsewhere before they leave. Once they are far away and safe from both Wicked and insurgents, Teresa will have all the time she needs and a steady supply of Thomas's blood to properly develop a cure for the virus. Thomas and Teresa make it to the roof and find that the building and entire city around them is now on fire. The insurgents have destroyed everything, and skyscrapers are crumbling to the ground. Their stairway behind them explodes in flames too, trapping them on the roof. With no option left and Thomas badly injured, the pair share a tender moment, kissing as they accept their fate. At that moment, Jorge's aircraft rises over the ledge of the building. Thomas's friends have come to save him. They fly the craft as close to the roof as possible, but Thomas is too injured to jump. With a final burst of energy, Teresa throws Thomas onto the aircraft. Before she can climb on board herself, the entire building gives way beneath her. Thomas yells for Teresa as the girl plunges through the roof and into the fiery rubble below. Heartbroken, exhausted, and badly hurt, Thomas passes out as the aircraft finally flies up and away from the city. Sometime later, Thomas wakes up in a hut on the beach. This is the survivors' new camp, where his remaining friends are staying. Mino and him share a hug, thankful they're still alive. That night, the survivors have a party celebrating their escape, and it's there that Mino hands Thomas the necklace Newt had passed to him before he died. Thomas opens the pendant and finds a note from Newt inside. In his last letter, Newt explains how much Thomas's friendship meant to him and praises Thomas as their leader. He asks that Thomas continue to keep everyone safe and thanks him for being a true friend. At dawn, Thomas takes a walk on the beach and looks at the horizon ahead. As he digs in his pockets, he finds that he still has a vial of Teresa's serum, the cure that can save mankind.
But what do you think? How would you beat Maze Runner the Death Cure? Let me know with a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, leave a like and subscribe, check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos like this, and don't forget that from now on, we'll be uploading on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Until next time, have a damn good day.